Okay, the flute mechanically is put together. It's time to start the finishing process. And to do my synthetic wood grain, I texturize it first. I've got a 2x4 here on this side so I can slide the flute back and forth and it will keep it straight. A couple weights to help guide it. This is an ammo can with some weight in it. And yes, this is super hood wrap, but this is a temporary thing that only has to work for like 3 or 4 minutes and then I'm done with it. So I just needed a hinge and a Dremel tool. So that's my hinge and Dremel tool. And then I function this up and down as I'm sliding the flute back and forth, and I'm rolling it. All of the little indentations that it's going to make to produce that wood grain, they all need to be perfectly in line with the direction of travel. So this helps me to do that, and it reduces the amount of user error. Set the Dremel at the lowest setting, because it's going to cut pretty quick. The name of the game here is texture. Even very nice hardwood will have texture. So I'm going to sand it up, get off all those little burrs with some really tore up 100 grit. And then I will move on to spray painting it, but I'm going to make sure it has plenty of texture. I want to get off all the little plastic burrs, but if this scratches the plastic all up, I'm perfectly good with that because it will help it to look more natural. If you want the paint to stick well, first off, make sure you're using a spray paint that is for plastic. It should say plastic on there. Most spray paints are okay, but sometimes the cheaper ones are not. And then the other thing you want to do is use some kind of a surface prep. One coat really is sufficient because I'm going to be sanding most of it right back off anyway. So now that this is all dry, I'm going to be pulling most of this paint back off of here. I'm going to be wet sanding it, and just so the sandpaper doesn't get clogged up. And I'm going to mostly sand down until the white starts to show through, and then I will try to leave some wood grain patterns of black, and some areas will be totally white. So. All right, I think that's as much sanding as I'm gonna do. I've got a little bit of kind of a wood grain pattern. So when you're sanding, obviously always travel lengthways. And I'm using 220. I'm only using 220 because I want to make it look like there's wood fibers. And then the little kind of V and upside down V shapes, that's something that you see in real wood. So it looks really rough right now, but I'm gonna put some poly on it. And this is my official flute painting stick. I've painted 3 or 4 different flutes on this stick, and it has served me well, so I'm gonna stick with it. So at the recommendation of Critter Bear, I'm using the Bombay Mahogany, which is a little too dark for what I'm doing because I'm putting down this black undercoat, which helps all of the pit marks and the detail show. But then when you put this dark poly on top of it, it has a propensity to be too dark. Polyurethane has the viscosity of water. It runs horribly. So it's kind of self-leveling. So if you put it on and there's a lot of big streaks, like you can see right now, a lot of those streaks will go away. And if you put it on very thick, it will run. And even if you don't put it on very thick, it will run sometimes. So, okay, So it definitely needs a second coat. It's looking not good, not bad. It looks how I expected. It needs to be wet sanded, and it will need a second coat. The thing is, when you wet sand it, I'll probably burn through the poly, and I'll probably have to end up doing 3 coats. But I'll be wet sanding it anyway, so it really doesn't matter. All right, I gave it a pretty quick wet sand with 600 grit. I really spent very little time on it. I just knocked down the high places, and that's about it. So that second coat looks good. All right, that second coat is now dry, and it's looking pretty good. It never shows up on the GoPro as well as it does in real life, but I want to do a third coat. I need to wet sand it, do a third coat real thin, and then I'll do one more coat with just clear coat. All right, so it's looking pretty good. I just started wet sanding it, and I'm getting ready to apply a third coat. I'm only using 800. I don't want to burn through the clear coat or through the poly that I've already got. Polyurethane coat number 3. The tone of the wood, synthetic wood, is looking pretty good. There's a few little runs and stuff, but it's looking good. It's a little dark, a little thick. That will lighten up a little bit whenever I wet sand it. This is some new 800. And I don't want to sand any spot very long or I'm going to burn through the clear. My 2500's getting pretty wore out. I need to get some new 2500. It's looking good. Looking really good. Welcome to my makeshift spray booth. I should put some kind of overhead cover so dust doesn't settle on the stuff I'm painting. But the wet sanding helped lighten it up quite a bit. It's looking really good. There are a couple, it still looks rough, I know. There are a couple spots where it burned through. The finger holes, they're really bad about burning through right at the edges, like you can see underneath the hole in the middle of the screen. And then up here on the edges, right there, you can see that that burned through right there as well. So I don't want to repaint the whole thing for those little areas. So I'm just going to use a Q-tip and just very lightly cover those. I already cleaned it with paint prep. That's very thin. For the final coat of polyurethane, because I don't want to mess with all the runs and drips, I'm using spray-on. This, I like to use gloss. I like a very bright glossy finish. It's the most transparent. If you have, like right now, it's got a really satin appearance because of the wet sanding, and so you really can't see the wood grain detail as much. So this stuff goes on nice and thin and even, unlike using the brush, and it doesn't run and drip. The bad thing is, number one, you're supposed to shake this for 2 minutes because it's really, really thick, and then you're supposed to wait. You're supposed to do all of your recoating within 2 hours, and if unable to do so, wait for 72 hours. And then it says to wait 24 hours before normal use. So that's a long time to cure.
Can I try something cool though? Can I show you something cool?
Wait,
so you see these right? So you see these right?
What is it?
I put a big part inside and rolled it around, and I did the same with the other ones.
Is that Play-Doh?
Is it cool?
Yeah. That's cool.
Show you the video.
All right.
Can I show people who are watching the video? I took Play-Doh with this, and I rolled it. I took a pearl inside the Play-Doh, and I rolled it together like that, and ta-da!
All right, the polyurethane is dry, and it looks pretty good, except I don't like all the white shiny plastic that's looking out at me out of all these holes. I really should have thought to do this before I had the whole thing finished, and I wouldn't have to mask everything off. I've got one thing left to do to this flute, and that is to install the thumb stops. So the thumb stop is going to go right there on the F natural hole, and it's going to be to index my thumb against for whenever I'm playing it and I can't feel the hole very well because my hands are calloused. A little bit of super glue. This is my thumb stop that I made out of PVC. Little Trinity sign. To install this, you got a limited amount of time when the super glue is applied. I've already marked, I took a pencil and I marked center line. I didn't do that on the previous flute, and I got the Trinity sign a little messed up. So my thumb is installed. It's over probably 2 millimeters. Dang it. I should have marked it with permanent marker instead of pencil. One last thing on finishing the flute. After you do all the spray painting and all the finishing and everything, if your spray paint has been too thick, or if the polyurethane has been too thick, it will flatten the overall tone, and it will flatten each one of the holes. So sometimes you have to go back and take a little wad of sandpaper and go back into the holes and clean them out. The embouchure is very touchy. Everything in the first little 20 millimeters or so of where the air hits, it's got to be super clean. No snarls in the plastic, no like overspray. The porosity from overspray even makes a difference. So you want to go back and clean up your flute. And then evidently, or not evidently, apparently, whatever I'm a caveman. I'm not good with English. I don't know how I play music if I can't speak English, but there will always be little nicks and gouges in the PVC where the paint didn't stick, like right at the holes where I've drilled, or right here on the ends. And I touched all them up already, but I go back with a Sharpie. And if you only do one coat of Sharpie, you can tell that it's Sharpie. But let it dry and then give it another 3 coats, and then you can't tell at all. It just looks like black spray paint. So that's it. Those are my flutes. I am hoping to, I'm on a really big flute kick. I am really trying to practice every single day and get better.